Now let's return to our developing story out of Lebanon. That's where Israeli forces have carried out a series of strikes in the south. Despite a ceasefire agreed nearly 1 year ago, the army said that Hezbollah was rebuilding its infrastructure. At least one person was killed and 3 people wounded in the Tyre area. Now, Nabeel Khoury is a former US diplomat to the region. He's also a senior non-resident fellow at the Arab Center. He joins us from Washington, D.C. What do you make of the timing of this particular attack?
It's in line with other attacks, of course, that are ongoing inside Gaza, and tensions and problems along the border with Egypt, between Gaza and Egypt. The logic is the same, that the people thereafter, Hamas in the case of Gaza, Hezbollah in the case of Lebanon, are rearming. Of course, there are ceasefires that have been agreed to on both fronts. And on the border with Egypt, there's a very long-term peace that has prevailed and cooperation between Egyptian and Israeli security forces to maintain the security of those borders. So the logic being used is not very good logic. Plus, in Lebanon, it's the civilians that are suffering. The attacks have been ongoing on a daily basis since the ceasefire was signed, was agreed to. And it's not just in the south. A couple of days ago, there was an attack near the Cedars of Lebanon, which is way to the north, and a home was destroyed with a family inside it. No apparent logic, reason was given, nothing like that. These aggressive acts indicate that the Israelis have not finished doing whatever it is they have in mind that they're doing, mainly intimidation. To some extent, the Trump administration has been asking for a quiet on all these borders. But at the same time, they don't do anything when the Israelis ignore those warnings.
Nabeel, the reason I ask you about timing is because Ahmed al-Shara, the Syrian president, is due to visit Lebanon. It's a crucial visit for both Syria and Lebanon. And yet, here you have Israel flexing its muscles and once again violating the ceasefire. Do you think those two things are linked?
I'm afraid they are, and in a negative way. There has been much discussion in the media and political circles, particularly in Lebanon. And to some extent, they echo things that are being said by some Israeli ministers, typically of the extreme right wing, that there might be an Israeli-Syrian collaboration on going after Hezbollah in Lebanon. The visit of the new Syrian president to Lebanon is being looked at with a lot of anxiety. There's not that much that can happen of a positive nature between the two countries at this point. Shara of Damascus has been cozying up a fair amount with Israel, and there are discussions ongoing for possible normalization between Syria and Israel. That cannot be good news for Lebanon because it means there's pressure being put. And some of the Trump administration pronouncements are telling the Lebanese, look at all the positive things happening and potentially going to happen in Syria. The pressure is on you to do the same. So I see the visit and the Israeli bombings as more warnings. To some extent, the remarks by Tom Barak address this issue very directly.
Now, let's just take a look at the US role. You've mentioned the US there. Gaza is an absolute red line. That ceasefire, the Americans are insisting, has to hold and has to move forward. They're less insistent, as you've just pointed out, when it comes to Syria, when it comes to Yemen, when it comes to Lebanon. Why isn't that pressure being applied by the US? It's just simply to allow, in effect, a release valve for Israel to actually attack something.
Well, there are conflicting tendencies, perhaps, if we look at statements that issue warnings to Israel. And there have been a few by Trump personally and by Jared Kushner and Witkoff, basically telling them, look, we need some quiet here, so why don't you stop these aggressive acts? At the same time, Trump personally and others in the administration say that Israel has the right to go after Hamas, Houthis, and Hezbollah to make sure that they disarm. And that if they don't disarm, Israel has the right to do whatever it sees necessary. Now, those are conflicting remarks and statements. I see it as when the U.S., when the Trump administration calls for quiet and issues warnings, they're saying that to try to please the Gulf countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, which is not about to jump into the normalization fray without a serious calming down and without the beginning of phase 2 of the Trump plan. But I would say this is lip service to try to please the Gulf countries. In real terms, when Israel ignores the warnings and goes on with its rampage on all these fronts, the Trump administration doesn't follow the statements with any sanctions of any kind. So my feeling is, and this is the message that the Israelis are getting, is that don't pay attention when we give you warnings. Basically, go ahead and do what you feel is necessary. The push for peace doesn't seem serious at all.
Nabeel Khoury, thank you very much for your analysis. Nabeel Khoury there, live for us from Washington, D.C.
Don't miss out. Get a full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.